Super good.
Talking about bug snacks. It's bug snacks. Everyone's talking about bug snacks.
Yeah, I've played like 6 minutes of this game so far. I was telling Seth before the call, or before the stream rather. I booted it up and then promptly closed it because I was making my wife motion sick. This is what happened. I promise it's the truth. I promise. I'm doing this now. Here we go. Title screen. Let's go. Welcome on in, everyone. Where's my sidechain at? There it is. Okay. Hey, Matt Fisher. Yo, Taco Bowl. It's good to see you frequenting the chat again. As always, of course. Natasha, what up? Good to see you. This is the final stream of the year. We're breaking our once every 2 weeks rule to do one last stream this year before the Christmas break. We're off as of, well, this weekend basically. Likely. I've been putting a lot of hours in, myself and some of those at Power Up. A lot of hours in shipping Super Meat Boy Forever, actually. I was up far too late last night. I woke up about 2 hours ago to do this stream. Taking today off for the most part, but here to spend it with you at least. Jamming out. The Dad chorus. Man, I haven't listened to this in so long. I played Octodad like years ago. Like a long time ago. What a great game. Jeez. Yeah, we're going here actually. This is too good. This is not Seth Parker's work. See, Ian McKinney, but V good. Octodad is legendary, says Doe. Yes. True, it's so good. There was a 2 players 1 controller run of it at SGDQ Summer Games Done Quick in like 2016 or something? 17? It's pretty hilarious. It's actually very impressive too. It went very well. Surprising. Too good. Yeah, so today we have Seth Parker joining us as guest host. You might know him from such games as Octodad, Dadliest Catch, and of course the recently released Bug Snacks, which I will be dumping some hours into over the holiday break, I'm sure, while my wife is not in the room, out of kindness to her. Oh man, it's too good. Cranking this. All right, and today we're looking at some work from Thomas Dane? Dane? I'm not sure. I feel so bad with names. I gotta ask people to submit a recording of them saying their own name aloud or something. And oh, here's a doe right here. That can't be a coincidence, right? That's gotta be one and the same, I suspect. Roby doe? Yeah, it's like Bordeaux, right? Isn't that right? That would be my best guess. Dedan. Okay, Dedan, thank you. You're both here. Perfect. Okay, you're both here. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to also have one Seth Parker here. Yeah, so again, composer and sound designer at Young Horses. has been kind enough to offer his pre-holiday break time to join us on stream. Let me just grab him here. There. How's that? Hey. Here, I'll turn off my side chain too, so I don't stomp on you. Oh, what the? Come on now, Discord. Why does Discord do this? Grivview? Here we go. There we go. My stream was crazy. Like I was saying, man, it's like it's still a new thing, right? Yeah, it happens. Oh well. Well, thank you again so much for making the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I know 90 minutes isn't the easiest thing to find in the middle of a work week. Although you were saying before you're taking some time off with Bug Snacks having shipped, yeah?
Yeah. We've been taking some much needed rest time. So
awesome.
Haven't been doing too much in the last week or so.
Yeah, deserve it for sure. It's definitely necessary. I'm really glad that that I have this holiday break after all this Meat Boy work is going into, because it's time to not work for a while and just recharge a bit.
For sure.
Anyway, yeah, so you are composer and sound designer at Young Horses. I've met various Young Horses folks at GDC and elsewhere over the years. But I don't think we met in person, have we?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I feel like we have probably been in the same room at some point, just didn't realize it.
Yeah. Like I've probably seen you in the distance and been like, Kevin.
I saw Seth across the room. I was too nervous to say hello. Too nervous. Yeah, actually, let me find some really fast here. Years ago, can I find this quickly? I'm just doing this on the fly right now. Yeah, here it is. Nice. Years ago, Seth and many other audio folks in the indie space helped me with this IGF intro video. Check this out and play this. I'm just going to mute myself for... I'll just turn it down a bit. Here we go. Let's go and listen for... Talk to Dad. There he is. The very first thing. This whole IGF video is basically these various IGF contenders and such over the years, nominees. And yeah, I hit up like probably 15, 20 people to just ask for source assets, like that spelunky sound at the end there and such. It's crazy. So yeah, Seth sent me a big old zip full of various blurbles from Autodad, so thanks for that. It's going back a ways 5 years ago. Jeez.
Yeah, and how weird that KKB was in that.
Yeah, right. So
I didn't even realize it until you said it a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so this song here playing, well, this is kind of cool actually. So it's KKB, let's go, right?
It's KKB, let's go.
So Caro, who also, of course, were the producers of that of the Bug Snacks theme. Crazy crossover. Mind you, I gotta flex for a second here. I actually mashed it up with "In Case of Trouble" from the Bastion soundtrack right here. It's the kid playing guitar. Check it out. Yeah, I'm proud of that. Holds up.
That's great.
Anyways, yeah, so now that you're with us, I actually wanted to ask you two things. And the first one was on the KKB topic, actually, and how that came to pass. That's really cool. It's not the most common thing to have like licensed music or to commission folks to make something that's custom for a project like this.
Yeah, we originally... So, I mean, the Octodad theme song was such a like big part of promoting the game and such a thing like for people to latch onto. We were like, well, we need to come up with something to, you know, something similar. Like people like to have something memorable like that to, you know, it helps people remember the game.
Yeah, and I will say that though my wife can't watch me play due to motion sickness, she does sing the theme song. So there's that.
Well, that's good. But yeah, basically, as we started working on the trailer, like even with the first draft, I kind of was like, well, why don't I try temp scoring this with a few things? And the first thing I kind of thought of was Picture This by KKB, and it just fit. Like I did some cuts because that trailer was only like a minute and a half long or something,
yeah,
but
right.
you know, cut it up, mocked it up, and it was like, oh, this is actually pretty great. So then, I don't know, we eventually found some contact info to get to just put a feeler out there and be like, hey, would you guys be interested in like doing a bespoke song in 2 months for this trailer? And they were like, oh yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, just considering my my limited experience with KKB, with that trailer thing, and also Brace Yourself Games, developers of Necrodancer and Industries of Titan and Cadence of Hyrule and Phantom Brigade and such, they hosted a PAX West party last year, and KKB was the headliner. And that was, I mean, I met them super briefly, but just they're obviously into the game space. I mean, there's like even songs that kind of are like game focused and such. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. And even the look of Bugsnax, compared against their music videos and such, is like, yeah, this could just be, they could have just been on the team the whole time and no one would have questioned that, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and even with like, I mean, no spoilers, but like, you know, even like the whole aesthetic is similar, where they're like, you know, it's kind of cute on the surface, but they're tackling some bigger issues, you know, sort of in between the lines, and that's what we try to do too. So it fits really nicely with
awesome.
the game.
Super cool. Well, thank you for sharing. And second thing, this goes for basically all the guest hosts we've had on. It's been really awesome to hear how various folks got their own start, given this is a show all about people trying to get their start in whatever corner of the industry they're looking for. And it's really helpful to know that, you know, to be reminded occasionally that no matter how established someone may be, everyone had to start somewhere, right? So if you're down for it, I'd love to hear how you got your first paid gig, what that would look like, or what that looked like.
Yeah, so I mean, basically my first, I mean, I did a lot of like recording recitals and stuff in college, because I went to DePaul and I was like a classical music major.
Oh, sure.
But it's sound recording technology major. So I guess my first paying gig was probably like recording recitals for people trying to get into grad school and whatnot. But
I think mine was doing a cheer mix, you know? Like, I think just in college, someone's like, my daughter is like in a cheer squad. Can you just take these 7 songs and make a thing? I'm like,
yeah. I've done a couple dozen of those too. It's just like, I would always, because it's like, oh, Seth does audio. Well, let's call him up and like help out with the high school. But but yeah, my first game audio gig was actually Octodad.
That's
like,
crazy.
I had an interest in like, well, actually so Rich Carl from why am I blanking on the name? They do Mortal Kombat, Injustice.
NetherRealm?
Blanking. Yeah, NetherRealm. Rich Carl from NetherRealm came to talk at one of my classes. And I was like, oh, game audio sounds like it's, you know, it's a crossover of like science and audio, and this sounds really interesting. And so I started kind of like looking around for ideas of how to get into that space. And DePaul has a game development school, and they were like doing an extracurricular project. And you basically applied. It was like a game, or I mean, like a job application. Like you sent in some work you had done, your resume, and then you did an interview with like a few of the faculty. So I had missed the deadline by like 2 weeks, but I was like, you know, maybe they didn't find anyone yet. So I just like sent them an email on the off chance, and they were like, yeah, come in for an interview tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And and now it's just I sent in that email on that off chance that something would happen, and now it's my job. So
there you go. Nice. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just how a 2-week late email just sends you on this path, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that totally makes sense. I think that the job posting deadline only exists because the deadline needs to exist, really. And at the end of the day, if you send in an application and you are the best fit, even if they already hired somebody and you send an application in, if you look good, they're going to put you in a file somewhere and be like, oh, we'll keep that person in mind and put it in our back pocket and keep them in mind.
Yeah, definitely. Like they want to have you down the line if they don't have an opening right now.
Mm-hmm. ArcSpace. Good to see you, by the way. So cool, ArcSpace. Yeah. So, did you want to do audio before this happened, or was this the thing that made you do audio stuff?
So yeah. So I'm a classical flutist, but I just was like I need to translate this into something that I can, like I didn't want to have a musician gig kind of lifestyle, I guess,
Right.
like doing a lot of auditions and whatnot.
Like
So
session playing or
I
anything?
yeah,
Yeah.
and so I was like, well, so looking at college programs, I narrowed in on a couple of schools that had like audio arts or audio production ones or programs, and DePaul has it's a Bachelor of Science in Music, which was like a very strange degree, or it drew me in because I was like, oh well, I can take math and physics and get like a good handle on electronics while also doing the like artistic creative side of things. And it's just like that's kind of how my brain works, so it just worked out perfectly for me.
Yeah, nice. It's I certainly use a whole lot of my math brain in the audio space. That's for sure, a whole lot of that. And that's kind of, I mean, when I left high school, it was even like, do I go into sciences or do I take music composition? It's like, well, which is it gonna be? And in the end, yeah, it was music composition. I played trumpet also, ArcSpace, yeah, at Grant McEwen in Edmonton. Yeah, and similarly, I didn't really want to go the session player route either. It didn't feel like, I wanted something a little more stable ongoing. But
well, and it's interesting because then like audio is kind of often a gig based. You're doing like different projects.
Yeah.
And so it's not that much different from being a gigging musician, I guess. But
yeah, it's like if the depends on the gig, I suppose. I mean, we certainly have done some projects with Power Up where it's like a day of work and you're done the entire contract, or even like 2 hours of work and the whole thing is done. Versus projects like Super Meat Boy Forever, which we signed on to help out with in like 2015 or something. I don't know, it was a long time ago. So it had like a whole different art style and stuff, right? It was only the prototype. So yeah, it's it varies wildly. Yes, there are some long ones for sure we've been involved with. That I'm happy it's finally coming out. People keep saying it's perhaps a warning not to put the word forever in your game title. So here we are. But no, it's coming out. It's December 23rd. I think it's coming out. Is that right? I got to double check this. I'm pretty sure that's correct though. I am tired. So I apologize. I'm a little loopy today, everyone. I'm sorry about that. Yes, December 23rd. It's happening. It is awesome. Happening. It was announced for Switch and stuff. And should be.
I will have to
it's
check
pretty
that
fun.
out over the holiday.
It's one of these games that I jump in to test the sound and end up just playing for like 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, I can't play right now. I gotta
like, oops.
get back to work. Anyway. Okay, well, I guess time to dive into things. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. I'll move this over here. So if it's anybody's first time watching Real Talk in the chat right now, this is a stream we do every 2 weeks. This is kind of an exception being right before the holidays. This is we did one last week also, but I didn't really want to do one on Christmas Eve. So here we are. This stream is basically all about looking at game audio demo reels from folks who have submitted their own work, people who are up and coming in the game audio sphere and are looking for some constructive feedback on maybe some things they could think about tweaking, changing, just to increase their chances of landing that gig. Like we were saying, I mean, with Seth submitting his work 2 weeks late, it's if you're still a good fit for the project and a good fit for the role they're looking to fill, and you make a good impression and you present yourself well and so forth, it's like a bunch of meters, and the higher each meter is, the better chance you have overall. So we're gonna be looking at a few things here. We're looking at, oh my goodness, look at this terrible overlay. Never again. Leaving it alone. We're looking at presentation, material selection, content quality, and distinction. For presentation, we're looking at the websites on the whole, just general navigation stuff and taste and layout, and if there's too much information, not enough, that kind of thing. We're looking at the demo reel itself for presentation as well, so things like flow and how long the whole thing is, if it holds your attention, the titling, the bookends, just things that don't have to do with the audio, basically. And then for material selection, we're looking at the pieces they've chosen for the demo reel and for their portfolio, and what those pieces might suggest to someone who might not know them very well, what it may suggest about what their past work history looks like, what their current skill sets are, and what their future ambitions might be. And for content quality, we're looking at the work itself, the demo reel and such, and just, is it good? Is it near, or is it meeting or exceeding that industry standard of awesome that we're all always aiming for? And finally, distinction. Just, are they standing out in some positive way? Because as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't even matter if you're hireable now. Just if you stand out in a positive way, let's say your site looks kick-ass and super, super professional, but the work isn't quite there yet, it's obvious you're serious. Like, you put a lot of thought into things. So even though you might not have beat out the next person over who they end up hiring, you will absolutely have made an impression. And that's a great example of one we see on Real Talk all the time, where it's a super slick site and such, but the work is still kind of, you're out of school and it sounds like it. But I would love to hear your work in like 6 months. Just keep working, basically. So yeah, just making some positive impression, because there are a lot of people looking for the work, and it's very, very important to stand out in some positive way. And I kind of touched on it there, but I think Seth took a brief look at these before the stream, but I'm going in blind. So I have not seen these things at all before, hence my struggling with the names. I didn't search like pronouncenames.com for these things. I should have. But so we're going to go in blind to kind of best emulate what a first impression from a potential collaborator or recruiter or whatever it might be. Okay, enough rambling from me. You good to go, Seth?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Let's start with, actually, I'm curious where, I think I saw that someone's in the UK, right? Are you both in the UK? I have no idea. Well, we'll see. Let's start with Cassidy. Okay, so on the front page, we got home, game sound, linear work, credits. Is this a vertical page or horizontal page? Horizontal, cool. So credits, testimonials, and contact me. Front page, we got a big old demo reel right in the middle. Thanks for that. Always good to know that the important stuff's right pushing your face. And then a couple more things, linear work. This the top links, got it. So let's go to, I guess this is the about right here. It's like a semi-bio of sorts. I don't see anything else where it would be. So we got, welcome to my sound design portfolio. Here you will find a variety of my work as well as credits and testimonials. I have a passion in particular for game sound along with skills in many other forms of audio. I've worked on teams of all sizes for all types of media. I received a bachelor's of science for digital audio technology at Cogswell University of Silicon Valley, a highly industry-minded and project-based learning environment. I am always happy to get involved in anything I can bring to life with unique and detail-oriented sound. Cassidy. Got it. Cool. Great. So it's not like really a bio. It's kind of a really quick blurb. I mean, I don't know about you, Seth, but whenever I see text on any page, I like keeping it trim, because people have limited time. If they're like looking to hire, it means they are busy. So, keeping things minimal to the most important part is pretty important. But the second thing is I generally feel like if you're putting text on your page, you might be well advised to make sure it applies to you specifically, and so that they're learning something. What'd you get from this text, Seth?
Yeah, I would expect I want to learn about you in this little blurb and like what your personality is, and I'm not quite getting that here. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff is relevant for me to know, but I can that could be on a deeper page maybe that I can look into if I like your reel and want to dig in more.
Yeah, one thing that comes up a lot, Cassidy, on Real Talk is I hate writing anything. I spend like half an hour on a tweet and then regret once I tweet it. You know, it's not good. But like my bio, I don't like, but it exists. The one thing I'd recommend you do is like read every sentence and think, does this apply to me specifically, like to me personally, or could this be on anyone's website or anyone's demo reel or their bio? Like, here you'll find my work. Like, yes, most pages. You know, I have a passion for game audio. Yes, I sure hope so. You know. I've worked on teams of all sizes. Like, that's a little more you, because not everyone's worked on all kinds of teams. And then, like, this describes the school. Like, you had a bachelor's, cool. And then, like, the next part's kind of more describing the school. And then you're happy to get involved with things in sound. Again, that could be on anyone's page. So it's what it comes down to is people, if they've read this at all, it means they probably watched your reel and liked it, because it's safe to assume that while it may seem mean, most bios aren't going to get read until the person who's reviewing your work has a reason to care about your bio. If your stuff is kick-ass, then they'll want to learn more about you, right? So if you're at that point, you should be like, yes, got it. I wrote him in, got those hooks in, pulled him, the shepherd's crook, you know, and now look at this sweet bio, learn about me. So I would recommend that you, or encourage you to take that opportunity to like really, you know, use that time that they're giving you willingly, you know? Okay, so let's just move on a little bit. I'm just gonna browse these pages a bit. So game sound. Last day of college today. Oh, no way. Well, congrats, Cassidy. Good on you. Okay, interactive game sound. The Lodge. So here's some projects, I guess. A classic roll ball. Yeah, okay. Goblin's Tale, Cube. Yeah, also a classic. We see Cube a lot. Okay, linear work. Moving on. We got Space Kickstarter, Horse and Jaguar. Okay, so there's various linear pieces. Got it. Cool. And then credits. I'm curious, actually, given that you have various teams and such. So, excuse me. Hive Games, yeah, you have some things here. Nice. You have any credits. That's awesome. That's like not the most common thing. Yeah. What did your credits look like? Like your resume look like when you applied for that gig, Seth?
I mean, I mostly was just putting like stuff I did in college.
Yeah, totally.
Recital recording manager, etc.
Yeah, and you get that project. So there you go. So having any credits is like it's a very big win. Okay. So yes, so Taco Bowl in the chat is a big connoisseur of design and so forth. So I agree. Small details, get that period out of that credits. Testimonials. Nice. Okay. Written, the date written too. That's interesting. So it's recent. And contact me. Get in touch, another period. LinkedIn and Twitter. Wonderful. And a thing. Great. All right. Let's get back home and watch this reel. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Oh, I almost hung up on you. Close. Okay, let's not do that. Oh, I'm still tired, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to press do this. I can't see how long it is. Can I? How long is this thing? I'm going to cheat. 2:12. Okay, it's a bit long. A bit long for my taste. We'll see how we do. We go full screen, and I'm going to mute myself. Watch this thing in 3, 2, 1, and go.
Feeling a bit fuzzy again. Side effects can be nasty.
Nice leaves. Or fronds, I guess you call them. Palm fronds. Oh, we're done. Okay, all right. There's a sudden ending. It is suddenly done. Okay, and one of these. All right. Thanks, Cassidy. Okay. Oh, I see that I have a tooltip contextual pop-up that says video lodge reel update 225.mp4. Okay. Let's. Oh my God! Please, Discord, killing me. Okay, I'm gonna go smaller. Good. All right. So, having watched that, I certainly have some. I have a lot of thoughts. Do you have maybe just a quick, like, one sentence first impression before we dive into the?
Yeah, sure.
Let's go for it.
I think it feels a little bit slow to me. In terms of, like, I think it is just a little bit too long. Definitely, like.
Yeah.
There's some spots where you could trim off some of the fat there, but it's also I want the starting clip to be something more that feels like a beginning, like, because I mean, even though it's a reel, like, I still want to be like immediately like,
oh yeah,
oh what's that? And so like that scene with the car or whatever, like maybe starting with a different either low energy or high energy thing to like draw me in and try to, you know, start off with something flashier or more low energy to like draw me in.
100% agree. It's generally, if we were doing a stream where there is no guest host, I would take the opportunity to kind of track my own, but not like actively, but it just happens naturally. If I lose attention, I'll like notice that it happened and be like, oh, I'm now thinking about other things, or I'm now losing interest, or I'm now like, my hand is moving towards skipping ahead, or I just want to close the page entirely or whatever, right? But since we have Seth here, I just watched through the whole thing. I definitely have my attention lost like a few times. So in those cases, Cassidy, you're basically faced with like unfortunate consequence, and that consequence is that someone may just miss something, so they've lost their attention is not gripped anymore, so they may miss something just even though they watched it. They may skip ahead and skip over things you really want them to see. That's like your best stuff. Or worst case scenario, they will close the page entirely because they're like, this seems boring or whatever, right? I don't know if yours is a close the page entirely. I don't think it's quite there, but it's. I think it certainly has some room to improve in terms of, a few different angles, like what you're choosing and flow and so forth. So I'm just gonna go full screen here again. So basically, if we look at our first note in terms of presentation, I might actually link you a talk that my good pal Matthew Martinson and I did at GDC some years back, 2018. Audio boot camp. Oh, it's in my history. Sweet. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Open this in a tab. If y'all haven't watched this talk before, open in a tab and watch it later, please. I think you'll learn something. That talk is basically the result of about 2 years-ish of Matt and I doing Real Talk, just co-hosting, and just all the kind of common issues and such we encountered. So one big thing here is this is an interesting reel, Cassidy, just in terms of how you've chosen to structure it all, because it definitely it has a structure a lot more befitting of like a sizzle reel, where it's like, here's some cool stuff just back to back to back to back to back, and it's almost like an art piece in that case. And sometimes reels like that work really, really well. And it usually depends upon like whether that's effective or arguably a good choice, or maybe not. It depends upon what kind of experience level you have and how recognizable the pieces are and what kind of jobs you're going for. So given what I just watched, I don't think you've worked. And again, this is coming from an angle of like, I've looked at nothing so far. All I've seen is this video, right? I get the impression that you haven't yet worked with like a larger shipping game. And from this video alone, I have no idea what kind of jobs you're currently looking for. So that's a pretty big consideration. So presentation-wise, we'll get back to that in a second with like material selection and such. But as far as presentation goes, so I'm not sure how you feel about this, Seth, because it kind of goes back and forth. But I generally am a proponent of like labeling everything that is in the video. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would say I kind of want more information of like what you did in each of these clips. Did you do the implementation? Were you, and just so what each thing is, what exactly you did, and I mean as brief as possible, not a paragraph, just like
for
a couple of words.
Yeah, it's basically. I really encourage you, Cassidy, to consider that this might be all someone has time to look at. Like this might be all they do is watch this video, and so it's kind of on you to find a way to best communicate all the information you want to communicate in that small amount of time. Just give the most important things like, hey, here's me. Here are the things I have done. Here are the roles I had in those projects. And that's all you need to know. And hopefully the selections also imply and communicate certain things about like the kind of work you want to get in the future. Because you don't need to say it overtly. It can just heavily imply it by the kind of pieces you've chosen. Whereas because this is like really across the board, I don't know what you want to be doing in the future. So that's also a great reason why you're here in the chat right now, because you can tell us things like that, like what kind of jobs you want to get, because that will definitely serve to affect the kind of feedback that we may be throwing your way. So you were saying it's maybe long. I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I don't know if you're a big connoisseur of demo reels, Seth, but
no, I've never made one. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it comes down to like, I don't think you need to have made one or need to have watched like 1,000 of them to still like for it still to be important that flow is a large consideration. Like if this is the only thing you ever watch for demo reel, it still needs to be important for, you still need to be thinking flow. So,
and flow and like focus, I guess too, because I'm some of the shots I'm not entirely sure what I should be focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. You made a great point of what kind of role do you have in these things, and that's where those titlings can come in to help a lot. Like this is like the Lodge pre-alpha footage, but like I don't know what the Lodge is. I don't know if you did the sound design or like the kind of like the musical creepy ambient drone, or if you did implementation, or if you did like VO editing. Like I don't know at all what's happening here. So this here, Psychosis, randomized audio cue over 70 plus voice lines. Cool. Certainly. But having like deeper stuff like that might be better for like a deep dive kind of video, and just, allowing your work to speak for itself, voice lines. In general, having like, hey, like this is this cool like voice design or something. Like voice design might be something you could put in the bullet points of what your role was for this project if you want people to focus on that kind of thing. But in general, just the more text you have, or if the focus thing that Seth just mentioned, like text like jumping on the page to like middle and right and so forth, it just leads to the entire thing feeling unfocused. And then whether it's true or not, it can lead to this idea that maybe you are an unfocused individual and that perhaps your attention to detail is lacking or whatever, right? Like it doesn't even matter if it's true at that point. Just it's a matter of these small kind of like implications that you're making, that we're all making with the materials we put forwards for people to assess. Okay, so lengthwise, I like a minute. I mean, I know you're not like a big connoisseur of demo reels, Seth, but a minute feels good to me. Basically every time, even if the reel's like not that good, if it's a minute, I'll watch through the whole thing because I know it's a minute long.
Yeah, a minute is like respectful of the people's time because like they're going to be getting potentially hundreds or thousands of applications in these situations. So it's like they want to see all your best stuff right away and judge that. Like, because I mean, they'll know within, they'll watch the whole thing, but people will know within 20 seconds if they're like interested or not.
Yeah, 20 might even be generous.
Yeah, it might be 2 or 5. But
yeah, I bring up a thing that Scott Gershon said at GDC, my first GDC in 2012. He said, your job when you're applying for a gig is to make me want to hear more in 10 seconds. So there you go. It's an excellent piece of advice. So let's watch the first 10 seconds. I'll play the reduce volume, but here you go. All right, that was 10 seconds. So it is up to you, Cassidy, to decide, is this your strongest 10 seconds you have to show? And if not, I would certainly recommend that you look through your work and say, what can I do to follow Seth's awesome advice of start like on a journey and group me and hold me basically. Okay, so you mentioned being kind of unfocused too. This is kind of into material selection, but I think we can probably segue at this point. The linear stuff and interactive stuff and so forth. I saw you say in the chat, Cassidy, that you're thinking about maybe framing it better for game audio, and that's certainly astute. I think that's a very good move. This is like having a splash image for a game studio is kind of in the gray area of like, yes, it's linear, but it's still in the game space. So it makes it obvious that you are interested in the game space. Of course, we've all done linear stuff despite working in games. So I kind of gave my impression. Do you have any idea what kind of gigs Cassidy might be looking for, Seth? Like in terms of AAA or in terms of indie stuff or that kind of thing?
I don't know that it's immediately apparent to me from this, but I mean, I would say it seems like maybe you're looking for jobs in like the indie space. But there's definitely a variety of content, which is a good thing, but also it's a little bit, in terms of content, I would say like a little bit unfocused for that too. If you really want to say like, I want to work in AAA games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Cassidy, you're here, so I'm just curious, like what kind of projects do you see yourself, or do you want to be working on like in the next year or 2 or 5? Like, do you want to work with like Rich Carl at NetherRealm, or do you want to do the next Cuphead, or like what's your feelings? Because that's going to heavily change or affect how you should be kind of like scripting and sculpting your reel. Is there any redesign work in this thing? I don't recall. Because the thing is, so since there was no titles, I can't really call back to anything like, hey, I like that clip from The Thing. I just don't know what things are, right? So it's really difficult to talk about it, which might be a problem for a AAA team that's like adjudicating your work, and B, just to like remember what it was, because there were so many pieces in here that I kind of, it's like a soup in my memory right now. Just unfortunately, that's kind of just where I'm at right now. I did recall this clip here, but like from probably halfway through, I recall like the car braking and like a wrecking ball thing. Like it's all kind of loose right now.
The alien thing at the end.
I don't recall that. Oh, right. I can't recall. I recall this now. Yes. I just went to it. Right. So having things titled helps to, entrench that in your memory a little more. But it'll also inform us further, again, if this is a project, it's like a game or a video or a movie or something, like I have no idea. So having some like a bit of like, this is the project, this is what I did, and if it shipped would be awesome too, because like you said, you have credits, and credits are awesome. Again, assume they have not looked at your credits. They haven't looked anywhere else but this video. So seeing something like, PS4 or like Steam or itch even or whatever is a big thing. That it's hard to ship projects. Seth and I definitely know all about that. It's very hard to ship anything. So if you shipped anything, that's a big thumbs up and can go a long way in helping you land more work, because you know what that looks like. Top goal is AAA game audio. In the future, of course. There you go. Yes. So that said, this reel doesn't really speak to AAA because it's just so varied. And when you have a reel this varied, I mean, Seth mentioned it, that maybe indie stuff, and I don't want to speak for you, Seth, but I get the impression it's because it was so many different things. That's kind of what happens in freelance.
Yeah. It's just a lot of like, it seems kind of like, well, I'm open to a lot of things, but I'm not like hyper focused on any one specific thing.
Yeah. So what you can do, Cassidy, is like choose something that resembles what you want to be working on, like some AAA project, and redesign some gameplay, redesign some trailer work. And then it's like, hey, so here's things I've worked on. Yes, I know they're not at all AAA projects, but I'm still stoked about them. I hope you like them. And also, but here's what I want to be doing. And if it's a redesigns tend to communicate that. Because why would you redesign like Last of Us if you don't want to work at that studio or on games like that, I mean, you're taking your own time to redesign work, so people assume you're doing it because you want to be doing it. Okay, so that's a big one too. I guess content stuff we can probably dive into. Let's see here. Does anything stand out in your mind as far as content quality notes, like just design quality stuff?
So one of the things I noticed, and this may have been intentional to show like the programs you're working with, but I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. But there's one that was like a screen cap of a game in a window with like your taskbar
that was
in the bottom.
Cube. Yeah, that was like at 140-ish.
That seems about right. But yeah, that stood out to me as like, I probably want a full screen of this, because like it's nice to know the programs that you are familiar with, but like I'll probably get that if I dig deeper into your portfolio or your resume.
Right.
I kind of want to just see the content full screen.
Yeah, it's I mean, again, if it says I used like Unity and Wise or like Unreal and Fmod or like whatever you used, we'll trust you for the moment. And then even better, it's just like your bio, right? If someone's looking at your bio because they care, if they're looking at your secondary materials, like your implementation breakdown or something of this project you worked on, they're watching it because they want to learn something. So if you put Unreal and Fmod on some project, just as an example, and you have some secondary video being like, hey, hey, I'm Cassidy, like narrate the thing and just walk us through what makes this project so cool and why you're proud of this thing and what cool problems you solved and so forth, right? That's a really, really effective way to demonstrate A, your abilities, and B, just speaking your passions, because it comes through when you're talking about things you like doing. Okay, so yeah, Cube, I knew what it was. I've seen Cube like 100 times. It's one of those like free projects you can like download and like learn from and stuff. So yeah, it basically never sounds good. It's a very hard game to make sound good. So yeah, it's a tough one. One thing that stands out in my mind is this wrecking ball thing, which I don't know if I can find it. It kind of goes for a lot of your work. And honestly, so Cassidy, I literally checked on my master to make sure I didn't have any queue with like a high shelf to drop things down, because I feel like your highs could use some love. It's a lot of like low, mid, low stuff. And so, for example, let me turn this up just a hair. This wrecking ball clip, like all the stuff that's in there is fine, it's just not quite complete. Like if you were standing there, there would be a lot more high frequency content in what we hear in that thing. Like, what are these things made of? Is it a metal ball? Is it a stone ball? Is it, is it like smashing the bricks as it hits them immediately, or is it like hitting like this cracking, or there's like a lot of detail here that's kind of missing. Even the sand on the ground, like we didn't hear that. It's very like, so maybe if you're like far away, like behind a wall, it would sound like that. But because we're right in front of it, we get a lot more of that crack and like on the hit. And in general, there's a lot of highs that were kind of it felt you were being very cautious about using them. And I applaud caution when when it comes to highs, but I think you can probably swing the pendulum a bit farther yet, and just put a little more detail into like the kind of the details of the sounds you're hearing. Even this wrecking ball thing, like if I've lost it now, there it is. So it hits, like the very top breaks off. Look at this. It's like, what, 40 feet tall, 50 feet tall, higher? And like you can kind of imply a lot more than what we're seeing. It feels like, I'm just focusing in hard on this clip. It's like 2 seconds long, sorry. But it feels like you're focusing really hard on what you're seeing for sync. Like, and is this even implemented? Again, there's no title. I don't know if it's like a linear piece or implemented piece. But either way, there's a lot of room in this kind of sound for just making further implication of what it sounds like. Like, yes, we see like two big chunks fall and tumble to the ground, but you can totally put like tons of debris in that sound. And, you know, if you see like there's like a wooden scaffold and stuff up top and there's stones breaking there, like who's to say that like pebbles didn't break off and like scattering down the scaffolding behind the wall now? Like there's a lot of room there to be further creative with the sound you're making. And it's just like a freaking impact. It's just an impact explosion thing, right? But there's a lot of room there, a whole lot of room to fill in some more gaps, some more blanks. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that same. Just while we're talking about this scene. Well, just a general note, like I feel like some of the clips you've chosen are a little bit like have a little bit too much lead in, or I'm not like waiting for the thing to happen that I'm listening for. And I think this is kind of a good example because like I don't really hear like, you know, we're focusing on the impact, I feel like, in this clip, and it would be nice since you have the ball swinging if I get some motion of the ball wishing past, you know, from because you have some stereo possibilities there of swinging it past your ears, and then, you know, yeah, and like Kevin said, once that impact hits, you know, I feel like that could be a little bit wider in terms of the stereo field.
Sure. Yeah, it's this is definitely it's a cool clip to design because there is like a lot of kind of general sense of what's happening as well as room for detail. This would be fun to work on. But yeah, so Seth mentioned like the ball coming in, like that's the whole idea of this story. And this comes up like literally every single Real Talk. We talk about story and how your job as a sound designer is to support this story, support the narrative of what's happening. And that narrative might be like, you know, an entire hour-long story, or it can be like this moment in time. It's still a story being told, right? So the thing goes like click, and the thing moves, and it hits the thing, and the thing breaks, and the thing falls back. Like there's a lot of little beats here to hit, and like the chain is part of that story. You know, I can see the chain there. Like this thing moves. This is such a good point, Seth, you make, because like this lever moves. And then this massive ball that we are to believe this wall took down this like fortified stone wall that's been here for a century, and there's like no sound of it coming back, right?
Yeah, it'd be nice to have some weight to it, you know, so I'm like expecting the impact a little bit. Like
imagine that. I mean, and again, this is definitely a lot of like hand wavy game audio design, but that's our job. We can totally do that. We can just fill in like the kind of the gaps in the story. Because yes, this is like it's a trebuchet wrecking ball thing. It's got, you know, 3 wooden things holding it up, and it's got 2 little posts with a lever on it. Like, this is not a complex machine. This is definitely very basic to look at. But you could totally, like, KRQCK, sick handle, coming from me with this handle in the chat, says, imagine beyond the image. Yes, exactly. Like, you don't need to be designing this specifically. Just think of, like, if you say it in words, like, I pushed this heavy lever down and it cranked a massive wrecking ball back, which swung forwards and exploded a century-old stone wall. Like, if you were to design that with your eyes closed, or rather listen to that in your mind's ear with your eyes closed, that'd be a huge sound, right? And there's a lot of like moments to it like that, and that's kind of where maturity in design comes from, and that's kind of why we can spend so much time on this one clip, because it really is representative of like a lot of lessons to be learned, a lot of things to focus on to kind of level up next in your own craft. So yeah, think of like all the details at play and try to reflect that in the story being told. The last thing there in terms of this lever is, since it's not super crazy mechanical, you can still totally imply like what's happening like above the thing. Is there like some gears or something? Like maybe there is, right? It really, you have so much like leeway and leniency when it comes to that kind of thing. You can do whatever you want. No one's gonna watch the clip and be like, I don't see the gears though.
Yeah, and that's also, I feel like this is a nice opportunity for like a good dynamic moment where you're having, you start with something big, have a little bit of like this anticipation, and then the impact sound. So you're telling the whole story there.
Yeah, Taco Bull saying wood stress. Totally. Let's hear the wood splintering out of the weight of this thing. Absolutely. Okay, I'm keen to probably stop talking about wrecking balls.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
I mean, that was the one that, of the first watch through, this clip stood out to me the most because it was so dynamic. Like, it starts from silence, like nothing's happening. It represents this full idea of like potential to like kinetic release, and it's like it explodes. So this is a great piece to design and showcase your talents, and I think it's one that you could certainly put a little more time into. Yeah, the rest I don't really have any like huge notes on it because I think that's a pretty good encompassing. Yeah, like that whole piece, as well as like just the choosing your selecting your pieces to reflect game stuff, etc. I think we probably have been pretty thorough in this respect. So the last thing before we move on to Thomas, it was Thomas, right? I said Thomas out loud and I wasn't sure it was right. Yes, Thomas. The last thing, Seth, do you think that currently, with his current presentation and work and such, do you think Cassidy is standing out in the crowd?
Currently, I would say no.
I am inclined to agree. I think that it's just kind of a combination of all these things we've been talking about. No one of them, no single kind of bit of feedback we've given you is a death sentence, so to speak. I mean, well, maybe length can be a death sentence if it's like a gross length, like 10 minutes or something like that, which I have seen before. But yeah, just if you crank any of them down a bit, it just sums to like kind of this dearth in expectation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good elements here to work off of and rearrange in different ways, and maybe adding just a redesign somewhere in there of a AAA scene would be a good way to add some extra oomph to it.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff here. It's just refining it.
Yes, 100%. I agree with the redesign note. I think that's going to be your biggest next project. I would recommend is just having something that people in AAA space could look at and be like, oh yeah, I recognize this, and now they can see what your work looks like in that space. Because right now you're kind of your presentation is putting forward this situation, this scenario where they're forced to like kind of transpose your work onto their own projects, and it's so much easier if you just show them what that looks like, One last thing, thoughts on the top video and game audio tab. Okay, let's do this real quick. Game sound, the Lodge pre-alpha trailer, top video. Let's watch a little bit of this one too. Let's see, how long is this? I don't want to wait too long before getting on to Thomas. It's not loading. So my thoughts are, it's not loading. There we go. Okay. Yeah, let's watch. Let's see. This is how long does it say? I really don't like this player. Oh, it's not playing again. I can't see how long it is, but it's like a minute-ish. Okay, let's watch this like for a minute-ish, and then we'll move on from there. Okay. I'll just mute myself. And 3, 2, 1, and go. Yeah, watch your file names, man. That's kind of a little bit of a...
Round and round we go. Who's in your head?
Right, so my thoughts immediately are, what am I watching? That's what I'm thinking. It's like a presentation of the game on the whole, I guess, or something. But the thing is, I'm turning my mic back on. Okay, I've seen enough, Seth. I began talking, but I realized I was still muted, sorry. So I was saying my thoughts are, I don't really know what I'm watching so far. So it's like this here. It says audio team lead, only sound designer and implementer, all done in. Okay, so are you the lead of a team or are you the only one? That's one thing also. But besides that, this, I would much rather have like a walkthrough from you of the project than just seeing more design of the project. Because I feel like I already saw, like this opening clip was in your demo reel, and the voice stuff resembled what was in your demo reel. So if someone's on the second page, like if they've taken any second steps to read your bio or see more content or look at your resume or whatever, that represents like your opportunity to like, close the deal, right? Because you like it's the two of the 1-2 punch. You got the one demo reel, they loved it, good job, and now 2, it's like, look at this sick thing also that proves I'm passionate and proves my skill sets and such. But if you just show them more of the same thing, or the same thing again is the worst thing you can do, then it just serves, it represents like a waste of their time, right? Like it's a bit discourteous because they are being so nice at looking at more of your things. So making that second thing as strong as possible is an excellent way to increase your odds of getting a call, right? Hopefully an interview.
Yeah, and the thumbnail is like that first scene that I'd already watched. So I was like, oh, like why are we watching this one? Was my initial thought. But
that's a great point.
But like, there's some cool stuff. Like the dialogue that you were, or the dialogue with like the burning room was a neat thing, and I would be interested in hearing how, like, what you were doing implementation wise in that scene with the burning room.
And you said in the video, like in the demo reel, like 70 plus variations, etc. Like that sounds like a really fun thing to have done, like a fun problem to solve. How do we sell this idea of like psychosis or whatever you said was in that video? I love doing voice design stuff. That sounds super fun. So yeah, explaining that, like the steps you took and the people you brought in and what how you wrote the scripts and all these things, how you recorded it. If you put things like left and right or if they whirled around or whatever, right? Those are the kind of things that people in a game audio space would love to hear more about. Okay, and keep in mind too, Cassidy, I don't know about you, Seth, but my DMs are open. So if you have any like further questions past this stream, or if you want any clarifications or anything, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat a bit further.
Yeah, I'm not sure if mine are, but feel free to hit me up on Twitter or whatever.
Cool. Let's close this and give him one of these. Thanks, Cassidy. Oh, and I've realized now that, of course, Thomas's page is only a video, so we probably are not short on time, actually. This is probably going to be fine. Okay. There isn't like a whole website to discuss. Okay, so Thomas Dedan. I seem to recall it being pronounced, if I'm right. Also, what's up? Abe Bowers, good to see you. Derek does sound. And Jamie. Is Jamie Baker, is that right? Baker Sounds? I think it's Jamie. Good to see everyone. Let's go full screen. One second, I'll read this. I'm a London-based junior-level sound designer working on AAA content for a games developer. So mysterious. Recent projects include Gears Tactics for which I did audio production testing, and Outcasters, a Stadia game for which I was credited as a sound designer. Nice. Games developer, huh? This reel includes sound design for Ground Destruction VFX and redesigns of Warhammer Vermintide 2 gameplay, Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn Fatality, and Doom Eternal's Ballista Weapon. So it seems like this might not have titles in the video if you're going to the trouble of putting it down below. We'll see. And down below we got the tiniest portrait, is it? What is this image? I see it. I zoomed way in. Is this thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Profile pic.
There you go. Okay, we got various links. We got LinkedIn, got Vimeo, got Twitter. Cool. Wonderful. And Thomas, I don't recall what your handle was in the chat, but I know I saw you. It was T. Dan. There it was. Gotcha. Okay. I guess we can watch this thing. I'll crank it up. Are you ready, Seth?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's watch this thing in 3, 2, 1, and go. Right. Okay. There you go. Thanks, Thomas. Nika Tunika. What's up, Mike? Digging what I'm hearing. All great games, great out here too. There you go. Right. So this is why I like seeing titles in videos, because I can't recall if these are all redesigns. This includes sound design for Ground Destruction VFX and redesigns of these things. Okay, yeah, so it does say there. I just really think you can't go wrong putting it in the video. Like, no one's going to be distracted by this, you know?
Yeah, because even having read that, I was like, wait, was this implemented or redesigned? Oh, right, it's redesigned.
Yeah, I forgot immediately. Cool, Thomas. I guess we'll just do the first impression thing again here, Seth. Do you have any quick thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it's a good length. It has a good beginning that draws me in. It feels like a good note to start on. And I don't know. I mean, I was engaged the whole time. So.
Yeah, likewise. I did watch the whole thing. I was lost a little bit during the weapon isolation stuff, because it just kind of went on for a lot of it. Yeah, it's like half the video, right? Is this weapon? Well, not quite half, almost half. So, yeah, just isolation stuff. It's not the worst thing to have in a demo reel. I generally, I've heard this. I've heard varying things actually from folks in the AAA space, as far as people who are in a recruitment position, and some people like hearing stuff in isolation. But I think it's generally agreed upon that in a demo reel context, it's generally better to have it presented in a gameplay context. You know, the shot is during gameplay, so we hear the gun as it sounds during a combat sequence or something like that, right? Or shooting a thing that explodes or whatever, and then it's oh, this makes more sense in the entire environment that I'm looking at, as opposed to this, where I think it's fair to say that what's contributing to your having lost me a little bit is the fact that there is there's like digital silence behind this, right? So it's like, here's a thing, and then silence. And it's like, and then back into it again. So it's harder to, I mean, how do you keep flow when you're going to silence like over and over again? It's really challenging. So Garrett Polk says, can you do both? Isolated and then in-game right after? I mean, yeah, maybe. There's no like hard and fast rules here, you know? Again, I'm not the word of God. I think Seth is safe in saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But just in terms of reels I've seen that have kicked major ass, have generally flowed really well and had, you know, they flow well. They give a good impression of what kind of projects that the person wants to work on and has worked on. They have a good mix of like implemented work and linear work and redesign work, like redesign gameplay versus redesign trailer work. It's really, yeah, that's the challenge, right? Is saying, how do I make this thing sound awesome and also serve, like the clip on the whole serve my needs? And yeah, I mean, choosing the piece you want to design is a big part of making sure that piece serves the reel as a whole. Keep in mind, Garrett, you could totally have the isolated version like in a separate video. You know, and this secondary page, here is the weapon sounds by themselves. And if someone's curious, they can go watch that, you know, but it's not like you're not taking the risk of like losing someone's attention because you move from this awesome, like gripping gameplay sequence into like Mortal Kombat sequence, which is built like with a story in mind and it built to grip your attention. That's why this thing exists, right? That's how it came to be. Like it's doing the heavy lifting for you in that case. Into this half the video being isolated weapon fire. It's just it's a risk you were taking. That's all. It might be fine. If it's amazing, then it might be fine. If it's good, then that's where risk starts coming into play. And it's like, okay, well, this could be better, and I'm keen to see the next thing. You know. Okay, so I guess presentation-wise, this one doesn't have the opening and closing cards because it's just sort of a standalone page like this. I mean, I'll just blast through some really quick ones here, Seth. So the gist here is that you don't necessarily know that someone's watching the video on this page is one thing also. Someone could link the video direct, and so I just like just removing all assumption that you can. Like it can't possibly hurt, you know? It just, again, you're just increasing odds of things being communicated in the correct way, or the way you desire. So having things like, here's who I am at the front and back of the reel, and having things like the titles of the things you worked on or you redesigned in the reel itself, like these things cannot possibly hurt. And in general, the only times I've seen it where it's really effective, where there aren't titles, is when it's for somebody who doesn't really need a reel because they're working. You know, like if Seth had a reel and it was a bunch of stuff from like Bug Snacks and Octodad, just like some cool stuff he's proud of, I don't think that would need to have like all the hallmarks of like the classic template for a reel, because these are projects that people recognize, and you can afford to be a little more artsy in that way and kind of just flow through a crazy sequence. But yeah, when you have redesigns and such, not only is it courteous to put a title on the thing of like the projects you are pulling from, it's also kind of dangerous not to, because then you have this danger of people assuming that you worked on Mortal Kombat or another realm today. Crazy. So, and you didn't do that, I'm pretty sure. I think that was Steven Shapler, actually. So bear that in mind, that you're taking a risk of people assuming just incorrect information. Okay. But yeah, I mean, lengthwise is awesome. And even though I felt like the second half slowed down a bit, I had no like qualms with watching the whole thing. It's only a minute long. So, you know, what's the worst going to happen? Okay. So I guess, next question here, Seth. So, just like with Cassidy, having watched this now, assuming you had no other information on the main page or anything, what kind of projects, what kind of studios do you think that Thomas is looking to work at?
I think Thomas is looking to work at a AAA studio.
I think that you're right. That seems pretty clear. So that's very good. And Cassidy, if you're still here, like, do you see, not to like compare you against the next person, but this is something that Thomas has done very well. I mean, you've chosen these pieces obviously with a lot of conscious thought. You've chosen them mindfully to best emulate the kinds of work that you want to be working on in the future. Of course you have. So there you go. Thomas says, I was struggling with having titles look visually presentable with the separate graphics and plus the actual website. Well, have you heard the good news of a little website I like to call joshadambell.com? Because it probably remains the strongest site that we've ever received. Aaron Bauer says Lamau. There you go. joshadambell.com. If you're playing the Real Talk drinking game, please take a shot. So I'm just going to skip ahead to any point in this video. And there is a title here with the thing that he worked on. And it's super tasteful. And it's got what he did. And no matter where I go, I got a look at what he has done. You know? This is so nice. Just looks so good. Super pro. You can't go wrong. I would not fault you for copying that one-to-one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry. And the thing is, Thomas, like I like your page. It's really minimal. I love minimalism. And I think you could probably even apply like this font and stuff to your video. And it's just one step further into this idea of like, you are a strong brand. Like the Thomas Dedan brand is like, again, mindful. You've taken this idea of minimalist font structure, kerning, etc. All these things have gone into your design. You can put in your video. And it's like, oh, they did this detail thing. That's cool. And it might not even be a conscious thought, but just seeing that kind of attention to detail in that video will be like, okay, well, perhaps that attention to detail will also transfer into audio things. And of course they will, right? There you go. Do you have thoughts on content stuff, Seth? Good or bad?
Yes. So, I mean, I agree with the note that you made. Like the redesign of the Doom weapon is probably like a little bit, takes up a little bit too much of the clip. But
sure.
like, I mean, I dig all of it, but like it definitely shows like you have stylized sound design chops, and. Yeah, here, let me see here. I would say maybe like with this opening visual, the rocks breaking lightning scene that it opens with, like I'm getting that like highly stylized vibe from it, but wouldn't mind if it was a little bit more organic. Like it's okay if it sounds like rocks a little bit. More than, I mean, it sounds great, but just a little bit more like grounding of,
sure.
of the aesthetic.
Yeah, and that kind of thing definitely comes down to like audio direction, like how real is this game going to sound versus like how stylized. Because you could design that scene in 8-bit if you really wanted to. That's an option.
Yeah,
but I'm inclined to agree. It's almost like you've got some like a taste of like the rock and stuff in there. That I also kind of it's then. You're almost like presenting this lens through which to view that work. And the lens says, hey, this is like what it would sound like, right? Because there's some real stuff in there. And then suddenly I'm like, well, it doesn't sound quite real, though. So yeah, I had a similar reaction to that one.
I like the Vermintide stuff a lot. Like I'm definitely, able to tell what thing is an impact and what's a block, and definitely like breaking down the individual bits of what you're trying to convey, and that works really well. Since the cuts are so like quick and bombastic, I'm a little bit. I kind of want to see it with a little more room to breathe. Yeah. Kind of like it all sounds good, but would it be too much if I was in the game experiencing that all the time? Yeah. Like I can't tell if it's very high energy and very good, but I can't tell if it's like maybe a bit bombastic.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to that story point again. Just that whole concept is there kind of isn't a story here because it's back in this like sizzle reel territory. And again, if you worked on this game and it was one of like 4 or 5 credits you were showing in a sizzle reel, then this kind of thing totally works because you kind of have nothing to prove. You're like, yeah, I worked on this thing. It's awesome, right? Moving on. But when you're looking to get hired, it's also your job to to show you can do the quiet moments too, because it's unlikely that you would be hired at a studio like this and be given like all the combat. And that's all you're gonna do. You'd probably have a lot more of it's like I can't remember who it was. It was Chris Barassa on the Red Hook team was making jokes about how people they post their portfolio for art, but in reality all they're gonna do is like draw boxes and crates all day. Because like that's a huge part of game development is you draw like the props and stuff. So knowing what things other than this crazy bombastic combat sounds like is probably worthwhile. But that said, like as a gripping your attention bombastic thing, cinematic, like you were saying in the chat, it definitely works. So it's really up to you what you want to show. If you think that perhaps in a third clip, in addition to or maybe instead of the weapon clip, up to you, then if you could pick like another clip to show that has more of those quiet moments, like we've seen things like, for example, a Horizon Zero Dawn clip where the player's like running through some grass and like some beast like runs past and they're like, oh no, and they like to stop and like watch it run, and they turn, there's like some big thing like walking the distance, and they turn like some combat, and that shows like this really great kind of motion of like dynamics and flow and such that we don't really get from this combat sequence, and also don't get from this like isolated weapon sequence, but for opposite reasons, right? So it's certainly something worth considering, because that's something that will set you apart. Like being able to nail those dynamics and nail that flow of the story is something that could stand to set you apart from your peers. He says, I suppose I added the gun mechanics and shots at the end, sort of to showcase I could do isolated layers of game type SFX. Yeah, sure. I mean, I get that. And I think that, like I was saying, those they aren't worthless, certainly. And some people like that. But in terms of making the best impression possible in a minute, I think that isolated clips are... It's tough for me to like really get on like isolated clips team as like the best possible option for a demo reel, you know? So in the end, if you think this is the best thing for you and you're really proud of it, then by all means include it. Just keep in mind all these other various goals that you might want to keep in mind, like flow and so forth, right? Right, so... Yeah, man, Seth, I was so down with this combat sequence, though. Like the clangs and impacts, they all felt really good. There was one that was like, ping, and I was like, yeah. I think I said like, yeah. When it happens.
Yeah, like it sounds great. So,
it got a
like
reaction
in
from
terms
me.
of content, it's all like very crispy.
Yeah,
and,
it sounds sick.
Like I'm like I don't do this kind of work really, but
yeah, totally. I mean, this sounds to me like, yeah, I could be in the game, sure. But it's so from that angle, yeah, content sounds good. It just isn't also selling the idea of like the story and the dynamics and such. That's all, Thomas. So I don't mean to like be super negative. Just the fact that we're talking about this at all is a good thing, because it's now nuance. Yeah. It's nuance beyond just like your ability to do sound design. Right. So I do have a note on the gun stuff. I'm not a big gun guy. I mean, I've done like one first-person shooter, and it was in like an 8-bit style. So it's not my forte at all. But you definitely have a lot of phrasing attention here, which is nice. I mean, the gun has like natural phrasing to it, so you kind of you're forced into it. But if Alex Barnhart, I don't think he's here right now, but he's often in the chat. And when guns come up, he loves pushing this idea of moving away from like single syllable gunfire, where it's like pa, and it just happens, and the gunshot's over, as opposed to like, it has this whole like it's again a story being told in like a fraction of a second. You have like the trigger into like the thump and the body and so forth, and the tail. So you definitely have a lot of those things here. There was a couple where it was really like, ka, just happens. I don't know where it was. I'm just listening again really fast. Like that was great, that one there. There was like 5 parts of that. That's awesome. And there's one later on. I don't know where it was actually. I have no idea where this was. I was thinking it when it happened. Was that one? Pa. It has like the beforehand. Yeah, okay, maybe I take it back. The one thing though I do want to hit on, and I want to listen to this at full volume once, not quite full, but closer to full, is frequency focus, or like tonal focus over time. And this is a bit of feedback that my team hates me for, because I always give it on our stuff, but just internally. But I'm gonna listen to it. Where was this? I think it was the second one. Yeah, totally. So this sequence looks super fun to design. Like all these little chunks to do, right? It's always fun designing like good art, because it's just like you have this great phrase to work with. So if I were to capture this and look in a spectrogram, I suspect I would see like a stripe of bright. It's like doom, it's like about there, and it's kind of the same like tung tung tung. So in amidst all these other sounds you have going on, you have like the same frequency that keeps hitting. And I guess you could argue like it's the same gun making the noise, sure, but I think that it's still, there's an argument to be made for moving that around a bit more and having like you can move around a lot to have a more dynamic story being told, as opposed to like so it's again, this is a very nuanced thing to talk about, and this is a like hyper detailed work. But I'm gonna play a little bit louder yet, and just listen for like that like kind of body frequency tone you're hitting. Like right here, I think. Yeah. Play the first one too. Right here. So it's, again, this is a hyper detail. This is not something that, if this like was in the game, I'd be like, it's bad, here's why. I'd be like, it's just, again, if you're looking for feedback, like that would be the feedback I would give. Is just consider like the moment to moment frequency focus. Big fan of like curving stuff and just moving it from here to there over time. Okay, do you have any final thoughts? And I know you're not a big gun guy either, Seth, but
yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts here?
I don't know. I don't know why, but I've been playing a lot of Halo 4 because it's out on PC now. But it kind of reminds me of like the Incinerator cannon, some of the like synth textures that you have going on around the more physical sounds in this gun clip, and like playing into those more is, I don't know, those are really cool, and those are like the stuff with the most kind of like motion, I feel like. So yeah, those are great.
Yeah, one last thing stuck out to me too is, I'm gonna play this one last time, so I keep playing it. It's a great shot. Very nice. Yeah, cool. I also love how you drop to near silence or silence before the shot happens, as you're able to actually have like that dynamic moment happen. Very cool. Good transient. Okay, so I'm keen to wrap it up there probably.
Sure.
So I guess this final thing, just given this very minimal page, do you think that Thomas is standing out in a crowd in a positive way currently? Even if you wouldn't hire him right now, it's up to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I would definitely put this in the category to take a much closer look at.
Totally.
Because it's really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm inclined to agree. Strong work, Thomas. However, as Seth just said, this is one I would like to take a little like deeper look into. But right now we can't take a deeper look into it. This is all there is.
True.
So I think your next step here is, if you choose to, restructure your reel a bit flow-wise, up to you. But regardless, I'd fully recommend that you consider some secondary materials and things like a bio and so forth. You have like a tiny bio at the top here, but really up to you. Like if someone is interested in your work, where can they go? Like what can they do, right? They can go to your, like they email you or LinkedIn or Vimeo or whatever. But like, if you just have more things like, hey, here's me, this is like a Medium post I made talking about this weapon design, or here's like a breakdown of that Mortal Kombat thing, or here's like some implemented work I did in the project or whatever. Like these various things can go a long way to again just sealing the deal if you've gotten their attention?
Yeah, because I would say like we've only hired one person recently, but and it wasn't an audio person, but I would say that the flow of like you're looking at your work first, and if that's like in the category of we want to take a closer look, then it's like, well, what's your personality like? Will you fit in with the team, especially with a small team? Depending on and I mean the audio team at prospective employer is probably like 5 people, so you're going to be working with people a lot, so they want to know a little bit about your personality, whatever you can convey in your bio. I think that would be a good start, because they get that in an interview, but it's good to be like, oh, this person's like silly, or this person is very detail oriented, or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And the thing is, I always harp on like narrate your breakdowns, because it shows your passion as you're speaking for these things. It also showcases your voice processing and editing ability and like recording and such. If I'm right here on this mic and I go through and like isotope RX out all like the sounds, then that's going to be a positive thing too. Like there's a lot of things you can do just like implicitly on top of making like the main purpose the breakdown thing exists, and that's to convey that information about the project. But you can show so much more. If I hear someone be like, hey, thanks for checking this thing out. Check it out. It's going to be awesome. Here's the thing. Look what I did. It's awesome, right? If they're like jacked about their like weird audio problem they solved, then that's such a good look. It's like such a good look, But if they're like kind of like, hey, here's and it's like recorded poorly or something, and it's just, of course, you're trying to like just beef up all the meters that lead towards getting hired somewhere. And enthusiasm is a real big one, culture-wise and risk-wise. I want to say one last thing on the topic of risk, because that's the biggest thing to consider here, Thomas, and Cassidy too, anyone watching really, is that when someone's hiring, they're taking a risk. They're hiring somebody and hoping it goes well, right? So the more you can convince a team that you are the least risk, the more you're likely to be hired. Because if they can hire you and be certain that it's going to work out, of course they're going to hire you. If there is less certainty with another candidate, they probably won't hire that candidate because it represents more risk. So the more things you can do just to further seal the idea that like, yes, I am a good choice. I'm not false. I am super enthusiastic. I have these skills, etc. It's going to be a good result for you. Okay, I'm going to wrap it right there. Thank you, Thomas. And again, feel free to reach out on Twitter and such. Happy to follow up if you have any final thoughts or clarifications, questions, etc. Okay, so thank you again for joining us, Seth.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you have any final words, anything you want us to check out, of course, Bug Snacks is out there right now. Everyone go play Bug Snacks.
Yeah, if you have a PS5, you can get Bug Snacks for free until January 4th, maybe?
That's crazy.
I don't know. Check it out if you want.
For free. What a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely be playing the heck out of that project. Maybe tonight. Been inspired.
It's also available on PC and PS4 on the Epic Store and on PS4.
So. There you go. Okay, well, thank you so much, man. I'll give one of these too. That one's for you. And I'll let you go. Hope you have a safe and relaxing holiday break.
You too.
All right, cheers. See you around.
Later.
Okay. Well, I'm still very tired. I hope it didn't show too much today. Oh my God. Shipping games is hard. Very difficult. I'll play out with this one too. Play. I'm cranked too high. Here we go. Play. Dad chorus. Oh yeah. Let's go. That's the track we're playing this whole stream out on. That's the one. Perfect. Okay, if you have not submitted your work and you want to, you can do so below at RegMK. That's me on Twitter. You can go at Power Up Audio. That's like kind of the whole studio, but we'll get it either way. And if you're not on Twitter, you can submit your work at powerupaudio.com, and we'll see it there too. I think right now we're looking to fill slots into like mid to late January, I think. Maybe February at this point. Not sure. But yeah, our next stream will be... Give me a second. I have that answer. I have this answer. Or back to the chorus again. Or back to the theme. Let's go. So good. I have the answer. 1 second. I want to say the 4th, I think, is the next stream. Let's check here. There we go. Not even close. The 7th. Okay, the 7th. So we'll see you on the 7th. All right, thanks all. I hope all you as well have a safe and relaxing holiday season. I'll see you in the new year. Thanks.